Hey guys, going to talk about Warcraft logs today. So, if you've never used this app before, but you've heard people talking about it, usually people talk about parsing or parses, which is probably one of the primary things that people use Warcraft logs for. It's essentially a centralized, damage and healing meter that everybody can view and compare themselves to other players in other guilds and cross realms or whatever. But you can also review if you're a raid leader or a class lead or a GM of a guild. You can use Warcraft logs to go back and look at performance and look at things like how often trinkets were being used, what kind of spells and abilities different people were casting, so on and so forth. So this is going to be a pretty basic video. I'm not going to get into super crazy detail about some of the things you can do with filters and whatnot. But this is not a tool that you have to be part of a guild to use. So you can come in and it's just warcraftlogs.com. So if you just do warcraftlogs.com, like I have mine's set for profile here. Let's change this. So you come into Warcraft logs. You need to create a profile first, okay? And once you create a profile, and if you don't know how to do a profile, so there's a help and info section right here, which is very helpful. And there's different sections. There's getting started. There's account setup. So if you scroll down here, it tells you how to get an account. There are paid accounts, but there's also free accounts, and you can upload logs and you can view your logs with a free account. I don't have a paid account yet, and I don't know if I ever will. It tells you how to enable combat logging so that you can upload the logs. There's also an add-on, and the add-on is called... Probably should have had this pulled up before I started the stream, but... So on Curse, there's an add-on that's called Auto Combat Logger, and this is for Classic. I don't know if this exists for Wrath, Classic, or retail or any of that other stuff, but for Classic era, you can do this Auto Combat Logger, and what it does is it automatically runs this command /combat log as soon as you enter a raid instance. So if you enter a 5-man, it doesn't do it, but and you can manually do that to have logs created, but this add-on makes it mindless because people forget all the time. One of the previous guilds I was in, we always had to remind people, hey, don't forget turn on combat logging, because you want to be, once you get hooked on Warcraft logs, you're going to want to log every single raid, unless it's like an Onyxia pug or something that you don't really care about. But especially if you're trying to get better, if you're in a guild that's in Nax or just starting out with Nax or just starting out with BWL and you're trying to get better, this tool is extremely helpful. And I'll show you some examples of logs as well. But their help page is very useful. This is what I use to get started. It tells you to get their client application, which I have. So the Warcraft logs uploader, and I'll just show you real quick. I gotta update my client. Okay. I don't normally upload it, but essentially what you do is it's on your desktop, and when you get logged into the Warcraft logs uploader, this companion app, you can then basically browse on your PC and select what you want to, and it parses out the let's see. So under the logs here, you can see here's combat logs that I've automatically had. That I've automatically had created. Sorry. So I just had one from last night This is a BWL. And if you open it up, it's just a text file. I don't think it's going to be huge. You're not going to be able to really read it. But what the Warcraft logs uploader does is it takes this file and you can name it whatever you want, which is what the report name will be on Warcraft logs. And when you upload it, Warcraft logs figures out what raid it was based on the mobs that are the enemies that are in the log file. I've actually never tried to open one of these before in Notepad. I'm assuming it's going to take quite a while. But that's where the logs get stored. And these only get pulled when you run that command / combat log. So you can see here there's like spellcast success. There's creature IDs, Blackwing Taskmaster, Healing Circle, Blackwing, and there's timestamps. There's all kinds of different stuff in here. So there's here Broodlord, Lash Lair. So you can see that this is not very human readable. And this is combat logging for everybody, not just me. So this is every single person in the raid. So if you're the only one logging, you can still capture the entire raid because it's pulling it from like the unfiltered combat log is essentially what it's doing. So that's what you need to get started is you create an account, you get that companion client, that which obviously I need to update mine. And it tells you, you know, there's uploader help. There's a Discord. It tells you, you know, what to do. Select what if you're in the US or EU, whatever, select your vanilla, whatever. So once you get all that done, then it says my name here, but it says you do not have any characters yet. That's because I'm on War Within, and my characters don't exist. I don't have any characters on War Within or Cataclysm or Season of Discovery. So if I click on Cataclysm, you'll see there's no characters, and there's also a way to claim characters, and I haven't rated. So if I go to vanilla, then it'll show my characters. So now you can see it's populating. Here's my recent logs, my recent personal logs, I think, which again, I don't normally upload. There's people in the guild who upload. I got my warrior, my paladin, and then my rogue. And then you can update characters or log out. Now, there's a few different ways to go look at reports. So if you want to look at your own, and I'm not yet, there's another thing you can do is you join a guild, or you can create a guild. Now, if you want to join a guild, you have to have the code. So there's a code that your GM or whoever set up the guild in Warcraft logs will have a code. I don't have that yet because I don't log for our guild. I just log to my personal logs. So you don't have to have this. Your guild that uploads your logs will still show that you're part of that guild, if that makes sense. So for example, the guild that I raid in is called Encore, and we're on Windseeker. So if I go to Encore Windseeker, and you can do this to find other guilds and whatnot, you can see there's profile, calendar, reports, analyze characters, yada yada. You want to go to reports, and this will be all the reports that Encore has ever uploaded. You can see it's 55 pages long. You can see the person who uploaded it, which is the owner, and then the date that they uploaded it. So there was an MC last night, which I didn't attend on my warrior. I did attend the BWL. So if I click on that, I'm going to be able to find myself in this raid. So you see it's still, you don't have to have every single person in the guild go here and join. If you're going to upload for the guild, then you should. So if you're going to be the one uploading the logs for your guild, you need to either create that guild, or if it's already existing, you need to join it. So once you're in here, like I said, there's a few different ways that you can look for stuff. So you can, if I wanted to look for myself, I could type in Absurd, and then this is me on Ash Candy. There's one on Living Flame. This is that my priest? Nope. I have a priest on... Oh, Season of Discovery. Yeah, I thought I did have that priest. Oh, no, it's a different name. Never mind. So there's a warlock, there's a rogue, paladin. So I'm gonna switch it back to vanilla. So if there's a warrior that you see on your server that is decked out, and you want to know, how good is this guy's parses? Like if I wanted to look up, let's say I'm gonna use Ort as an example. So one of our main tanks is Ortimus. He's on Peggle. And when you open him up, this is just his personal character stats. So it's his Naxxramas rank, his AQ40 rank, his Blackwing Lair rank, and then here's all of his best parses. And then what the DPS was, how many kills, fastest time, etc. If I wanted to see his individual AQ40 bosses, you just change this drop down to AQ40. And then it kind of shows you just a snapshot of kind of the gear he wears. So here's his AQ40 parses, and you can see if it's a shield, it's a tank, and if it's that, it's a fury DPS, whatever. And then let's say, even though it's not up here, you can go to Molten Core, see what his Molten Core parses are. And then if you wanted to look, like let's say on this, let's not look at Molten Core. Let's look at Nax instead. So in Nax on Patchwork, he currently has, even though this is a 99, his rank is 23 in the world on this fight for this version of the game. So it doesn't count for Sod, it doesn't count for Wrath, just for classic era, excuse me. So if I saw that and I was like, holy crap, 23, that's pretty good. I wonder what gear he was wearing and what his rotation looked like. You can just click on Patchwork and it will pull up that report. Unless it's too old. So then it's going to have all of his Patchwork kills he's ever done. So I'm going to look over here and look for... So I think it was this one, the 1285 DPS. I thought it was going to show me... Yeah, 1285. So then you click on that rank in this list, and it pulls up the report, and you can see this was February 5th, 2024. And then now that I'm in here, and then I can see everybody who was in the raid. I do not think... Oh, yeah, I was in this raid. I was going to say, February was right around the time I joined this guild was in February, so I was not a tank yet, and I don't... Let's look and see what gear I had on. Probably some garbage. Warbladed Akari, CTS... Zandalar's belt still. Ani pendant. Yeah, I think I'd only had a handful of Nax runs under my belt at this point. But I'm getting sidetracked here. So if you wanted to see Ort, so then once you're in here, you can click on the person's name and it will show you. So I'm under damage done right now. So you can see all the damage for the different abilities did. I can go to summary to see what gear he was wearing. So he was wearing some Dreadnought, Ring of the Godslayer, Ring of the Dreadnought, Slayer's Crest, Mark of the Champion, Gressel, Iblis, Toxin Injector. And then if I wanted to see like what his rotation looked like, I could go to casts. And you can see all the different casts. But then if I wanted to see like, well, what did he cast first? You can go to timelines and it will show you. So he opened with Death Wish, Sunder Armor, Heroic Strike, Bloodthirst, Slayer's Crest, Revenge, Heroic Strike, Heroic Strike, Heroic Strike, and you can just kind of go down the list and just see he refreshed Battle Shout. He's just Heroic Striking, every Bloodthirst, 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 Revenge, Revenge, Revenge. It looks like he's revenging and bloodthirsting on cooldown, and he's Heroic Striking. I don't see any Goblin Sapper charges or anything, any engineering. So he's just doing a really good job, and then he casts Last Stand right here. This is probably around the Enrage. He Blood Rages to get more rage. Yeah, it looks like he's just pressing his buttons essentially, and then he refreshed Stone Shield right at the end. But this is how you can see what somebody's rotation was. Alternatively, you can look at events. So if you look at tables, this will just tell you like the overall damage, and you can see, you can look at, if you wanted, like let's say we wanted to look at Bloodthirst more in depth, just click Bloodthirst, and then well, it's not showing it. Oh, because I'm on casts. Sorry, go back to damage done. Now go to Bloodthirst. Now you can see there's a table that shows how many casts. So he cast it 20 times. He landed a hit 17 times. The average hit was 1.3k. Or the average cast, excuse me. The average hit was 1.5k. He crit 23.5% of the time and he missed 15%. So there was 2 dodges and 1 parry from Patchwork. So here's where you can kind of break down, you know, what abilities were hitting, what was their average hit. Like his white melee hits were, there was 100, and that's, which is just essentially his offhand since he's heroic striking all the time. There's 112 of them. You know, average hit was 400. Crit rating was almost 50%, and then he missed almost 9%. But you can also go to casts, and then you can look at casts per minute. So Bloodthirst is on a 10-second cooldown, so his cast per minute was basically 10. That's pretty much perfect. Revenge, I don't remember exactly off the top of my head what Revenge's cooldown is. I think it's also 6 seconds. So here's where you can look and see what are people doing. Like, if this was a healer, you could look and see, you know, are they casting Flash of Light? And Flash of Light takes 1.5 seconds to cast. The boss fight was 120 seconds long. So you could figure out if their casts per minute are where they need to be for certain abilities. We can also look at damage taken. Oh, sorry, let me go back to damage done. You can also look at, I wanted to show the events tab, so you can go to events. So right now we're on damage taken. Let's go back to damage done. So this shows, you know, and this is not going to show usually anything outside of combat. But you can see he's shotgun, and then anything with an asterisk is a crit. So he crit the shoot gun for 449. Then he had 2 melee attacks that were glancing, probably main hand, offhand at the same time, or pretty close to the same time. Then a heroic strike, and then the Bloodthirst got parried, which is usually not a great thing to have happen on an opener. And then he had a crit, a revenge crit, a heroic strike crit, melee dodge. So you can go through here, and if you're a tank, this is pretty invaluable to figure out like what. So if for example, on this pool, if he had lost threat in the first couple seconds, you could go back and say, well, my Bloodthirst got parried. A lot of times you're not even going to realize that or notice that in the moment because you're focusing on so many other things. But I don't think that was the case here. That was just as an example. But you can see, you know, there's dodges, there's glances, there's misses, glances, dodges, and you can go all the way down. And then alternatively, you can also look in your damage taken. And if you die on a boss, you can go back and say, well, what happened? So go to damage taken and then go to events and just filter out by just your name only. And you can see, you know, melee for 3,000, melee parry, hateful strike. So he got hateful striked. He was the main tank on this, and the main tank is not supposed to take hateful strikes because whoever's top on threat, whoever's essentially is the main tank on the threat meter, should not be taking hateful strikes. So there must have been a split second on the pool where he was not at the top of the threat list, and he got hateful strike for 9k, which, you know, the main tank is normally doesn't have as much mitigation on Patchwork and doesn't have a shield on either. So you could go back and say, well, oh, the main tank got hateful, that's why he died. That didn't happen here. I'm just using that as an example. But you can see there's, you know, melee attacks, misses. The melee attacks dropped to about 2k, so his first 2 hits were 3k, 3,100, then it went 21, 22, 23, 25, 25. It never went back really to 3k. Without looking, I'm just going to assume that right around here is around the 5 or 6 second mark is when Demo Shout got put on the boss, and that damage got lowered. And we'll go check that here in a second. In here, you'll see again, the asterisk means a crit. So he got crit for 5k right here. Regular hits, crit for 4,200. regular hits, crit for 4,000, crit for 4,000. So that you can see how, and here's a big string of dodges, misses, and parries, where Patchwork just couldn't hit him. But you can see how useful this is to go back and analyze. So let's go look and see. So by looking at this, you can tell, the damage drops from 21, 22, 23, 25, 22, 24. It's probably averaging around 2,300 or 2,400, right around in this range. And up here, they had 2 back-to-back hits for over 3K. So the way that we want to see if what debuffs were on the boss. So we want to unfilter by, or go to tables, go to debuffs. Okay, now it's showing Death Wish, Forbearance, Slime. Because we're on friendlies, we want to switch it to enemies. So that's going to show us Patchwork's debuffs. Okay, now this is all the different debuffs he had, and then the gaps of where those things were not up. So Fairy Fire got put up, and then they never refreshed it. Now, Demo Shout, let's take a look. It was cast 5 times, so that was probably all refreshes, but it wasn't put on the boss. Let's go to just Demo Shout. It wasn't put on the boss until, 5.5 seconds in. So as a raid leader, you could look at this and say, Demo Shout needs to be put up instantaneously, because look at how much it decreased the damage on the tank. It took it from roughly, 2,400, or excuse me, it took it from roughly 3,100, which was only 2 hits. So that's probably not a great average. You're only using 2 hits as the average, but then it dropped it down to around 2,400. Demo Shout needs to be on every boss in the game, but especially hard-hitting bosses like Broodlord, Patchwork, Sapphiron, Nefarian. You really want to make sure it's not down at any point. You want to get it up as soon as possible. And the main tank really shouldn't be the one casting that, because it's a loss of a global cooldown, and they're focusing on their opener, and this needs to be up basically right away. You don't want to be casting Demo Shout as the main tank as your opener. You want to be casting Bloodthirst and Heroic Strike and getting your trinkets up and stuff like that. So now that we're in here, so we can look at debuffs. Again, we had to switch over to the enemies here. But you can see if things were falling off. Like Ignite was up and then it dropped and then it got reapplied again. I'm going to guess that they had a crappy Ignite they let fall off and they refreshed it, or they restarted it, rather. Gift of Arthas, which is a debuff that the tanks have on them, or a buff that tanks have on them that causes a debuff on the boss. It's not really controllable, but you can see it was up for most of the fight. Expose Armor, you can't so you don't see Sunder in this list. There was some Sunder here probably until Expose Armor took over, and then you can't Sunder. Fireball, Thunder Fury, Shadow Vulnerability. Again, Fairy Fire. Fairy Fire looks like it didn't get put up. Oh wait, I'm sorry. There's 2 Fairy Fires, so I didn't realize they had a Feral Druid. So there's regular Fairy Fire probably put up by a healer here, and then the Fairy Fire Feral was up, and then there is a gap right here, and then it was up again. So there was only a brief gap where Fairy Fire wasn't up. That's something else you want to have up as close to 100% of the time as possible. If you don't have a Feral in your raid, your Druid healer needs to put Fairy Fire on bosses, and that needs to be just as important as healing. It helps so much. Flame Buffet, this is from, I think, the Dragonlings. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. And then, so on certain bosses, like Curse of Wreck, that's another one you want to have up as close to 100% of the time as possible. On Patchwork, people are probably a little skittish to cast because you want the main tank to pick up first while he's running to the tanks. We usually tell people don't cast Blood Rage, don't cast Battle Shout, don't cast anything until he reaches the tank. So that's probably why these are at 95% and not 100. Okay, I'm going to go back to summary. So now let's go back to, so I'm going to go back to me. So if you want to just look at your own individual stuff, you just click here and then you go down here. And again, this is all your best performances. I rated Blackwing Lair last night, but it's not DMF week, so I didn't get any new parses. If you get a new parse, which some people care about, some people don't, it will show your best percentage, and then it will say not locked in. And that just means that I believe it takes 24 hours for Warcraft logs to update. So even though they get logs all day, every day, they don't I guess scrape those on the back end or whatever it is that they do. They don't process them for 24 hours. And you'll see that it'll say, if you just got a 99 on Firemaw, it would say 99. It would say not locked in. You come back tomorrow and look, and then it'll update and this will say 99. And it'll have your, all of your updated info. So if you wanted to see like my best veil ever, or let's say my worst veil ever, so you click on the boss, you can see all the different guilds that uploaded those reports. If it says none, that just means that report that you were part of was either a personal report and you're not part of a guild, or whoever uploaded it with you in the raid, they're not part of a guild either. So you can see some of these say none. These are probably just all personal ones that I've uploaded. Yeah, so there's probably my worst one. I probably died on this one. So some of these might be, so December 7th, let's see if this will pull up. I know that there's a limit on the free Warcraft logs account where you can't go back. There's a certain number of, I think, months that you can go back. Otherwise, it'll say this report has been archived and it's not available unless you upgrade to Platinum or whatever. I don't recognize what guild this is. I think this is... Was this a pug, maybe? But here's how we can... So this was not obviously a great veil attempt. This was probably... Oh, no, this was a kill. Okay. So it was a kill. But let's look at... let's say you look at this and you're like, how are these guys down at the bottom? Let's go to deaths. And I died at 31 seconds. So looks like I started tanking this and then I died. So this shows you the in order from timestamp of everybody's death and what they died from, how many seconds it took for them to die. So I died over 6.5 seconds. I took 2 melees and a fire nova. And if you mouse over it, it says I took a crushing blow for 2k, a fire nova for 565, and another crushing for almost 3k. So even though this says over 6.5 seconds, if you look at the timestamps, it's 31.4, 31.1, and 30.24. So that's really over like 2 seconds. So I took 40, almost 5k damage, 55k to 5,500 damage. So if we wanted to look at that in more detail, okay, you can click on your name. And then you can see, let's go, so here's where the 6.4 seconds starts. I had a heal from Bloodthirst. He flame breathed me. I got a regrowth, fire nova, Bloodthirst, flame breath again. I dodged a melee, swift mend. So this is going backwards in time. So this is the beginning of it, and this is the end of it where I died. So I got a swift mend, I got a flash of light for 600, I got cleaved, I got a holy light, fire nova. So, and you see these say R, that's resist. So I resisted. That's how I got hit by that much, and I resisted that much. And then 0 would be, that's overheal, and then this is overkill. So I was overkilled by 500. Now we could also go look. So this is showing my last moments essentially. If we go to damage taken, and you can either filter it from here or you can filter it like this. And this is from 23. This is before I was in Encore. This was right around the time that I was looking for a guild. So damage taken, filtered just by me. You can see the majority of the damage I took was from flame breath, and you can see in the little pop-up there it shows how many hits, how many resisted ticks, how many ticks, how many resisted hits, because flame breath does damage up front and then it puts a dot on you that stacks so that you can resist the hit and you can also resist the tick. And then there's how much melee damage I took, so you can see the crushing blows. You can also mouse over these and see how many missed dodges and parries there were. But I can go to events here, and this isn't going to show heals because we're under damage done, or damage taken, excuse me. So then this shows like right at the beginning, from the very beginning of the fight, and then it goes all the way to the end of the fight. So I died. This is where I died at 31 seconds. Now I'm pretty sure my gear was pretty crappy. So I'm going to go to summary. So the summary is going to show everything. So it's going to show I got Essence of the Red, Thorns, I cast Bloodthirst, I gained Bloodthirst, I swung a melee swing, somebody cast Rejuvenation on me. This is going to be several pages long of stuff. This is like the more detailed, if you want to look at the summary. Sometimes that's useful, sometimes it's not. But if you go to tables, this will show the gear that I was wearing. So let's see. 3-piece 2.5, Onyxia Pendant, Drake Talon Pauldrons, Zandalar's Belts, Bracers of Brutality, Gauntlets of Might, Band of Acuria. Vakari Warblades, not the worst gear in the world for BWL. Not great though. My health and armor probably were not great for this fight. And I don't remember. Let's see what I cast. I don't remember if I did not Death Wish, and I did not Recklessness. That's what I was looking for, to see if I cast either one of those two. So if we go again to timeline, you can see I got opened with a Bloodthirst, had a Heroic Strike, Battle Shout, Heroic Strike, Revenge, Heroic Strike. I didn't cast my Trinket until 10 seconds in. That's a little slow. Probably should have popped that at the start. Demo Shout. I don't know if that was a refresh or if that was the initial one. And then I cast Last Stand here, and as you can see, it didn't really help. I still died. Now looking at this doesn't really show you like what was my threat. So you can see who was tanking. So if we go to threat, then take my name out. Okay, and then we're going to go to sources. We don't care. So sometimes other mobs get thrown into these reports. You just want to make sure you're only selecting the boss. So you can tell here, I started off tanking. I'm under timeline still. You can go to tables, and it'll show you a different table like this. So I started tanking. I tanked until I died, and then the next tank that took over was Telecrash, it looks like. And then he either died or quit tanking. And then this person, Nathan OJ, tanked for a minute, and then a rogue. Actually, this person tanked next. No, this person. Yeah, I don't know why this is out of order. Let's go back. Let's go to timelines. Timeline's going to show it better. Yep, so then Telecrash. And then this Arconin, who's actually, it's funny, he's in my guild now. Then Nathan OJ. Then Bangs. Then Archiantis. Then a Rogue. And then this Hrothgar finished out the fight. And then you can see it up here as well. If you go to this, it'll say what timestamp they started tanking. And this is just top. This doesn't show how much threat somebody had. This just shows who the boss was actively attacking. So if you're ever like wondering, oh, somebody pulled aggro, you can come in here and look at this threat and see if somebody pulled aggro. And then obviously, sometimes it's pulling aggro, sometimes it's because someone died. Now I'm going to go back to summary. It says timeline. Oh, I'm under timelines. It said this pane is still under construction. I want to go back to tables. So you're just going to use these. You're going to use these tabs down here. You're going to use this. But here's another thing. You can also see what. So we're under Veil still. Let's see. Well, what about what Veil casted? So you can go to casts and then swap it. So here's the entire raid's casts. You can see cast per minute, and the person at the top. This isn't DPS. This is just how many casts did they do. So this person did 61 casts. This person did 57. But you can also change this to enemies, and then select Veil. And you can see there's the abilities he cast the most. He cast Fire Nova 24 times over the course of a 1.5-minute fight. He cast Tail Sweep, so some people were in the wrong spot. And he cast Tail Sweep 11 times. That's not good. He cleaved 10 times, Flame Breath, so you can see summon player. I don't know who he summoned. And then you can also look at his damage. So if you go to damage done, you can see, just like he was a player, you can see he did Fire Nova, because this Fire Nova basically hits everybody. So looking at that damage per second looks crazy until you realize it's divided out amongst all the players. But yeah, he did almost 5k DPS just with Fire Nova. So that's why people say, go to UBRS and get the fire buff. Because even if you're not tanking, everybody in the raid should get that fire buff because it's 80 fire resist for free. Because you can help mitigate some of that damage. But you can do this for Broodlord. You can do this for any mobs. See their damage done. You can see what their casts are. You can see what their debuffs are, which this is very, very handy. Like I've said, like Corruption, this should not be. Yeah, Corruption, that shouldn't even be on a boss. I don't know why that's on a boss. Moonfire. Okay, so compare this to the other one I just looked at a minute ago. Look at these debuffs. I think he's immune to fire, so there's not going to be fireballs or ignites. Wreck is up. Demo Shout was only up 73% of the time, which is not great. But there's Shadow Word Pain, Moonfire, Corruption. These are all shit dots. These should not be up on a boss. Serpent Sting. I mean, yeah, that's probably why this fight took 1 minute and 20 seconds. I haven't looked at this report in probably ever. Okay, so let's say, let's see. Okay, so let's do something else. Let me go find, and let's say I want to go look at, because there's another cool thing you can do in Warcraft logs other than just looking at parses and then breaking down individual analysis. Let's say I want to look at, trying to think of a fight that had, let's do Gluth. And what is today's date? October. So you can click on these. So you can click and see your, you can filter by the columns, which is nice. So my most recent Gluth was October 17th, which is probably right. Wait, no, I don't want that one because I was tanking that one. I'm trying to find one that I wasn't tanking. Let's do this one. October 12th. Okay, so I'm going to click on the 3. All right. And so I did 70 DPS, but on Gluth, let's go to casts. And let's go to, so here's another thing you can do that's really cool. And again, I'm not going to go over every single thing that you can do in here. You kind of just need to start playing around with it. But when you go to casts and you can look at individual players, you can also filter out by target, and which player you want to look at. You can also filter by abilities. So if you want to look at, who casts Sunder Armor, you can see, and if their name is missing, then they cast it 0 times. So if you have 20 warriors in your raid and you only have 10 warriors that cast Sunder Armor, you can, without going into individual people to see if they cast it, you can do it this way. But what I was looking at was for Piercing Howl, because on Gluth, yeah, so I was the Gluth tank for the ads because I cast Piercing Howl 13 times, and that's what we're doing to chase the ads around. But you can also, if you're looking at this and you're like, what the heck was going on? And you just don't know how a fight works. You can go to, and so right here you got tables, timelines, events, and then you have queries, which I'm not going to go over queries. But up here we're under analyze. You can also go to replay. All right, and then here's the raid here, and then you just hit. So you have players, pets, bosses, NPCs, the playback speed, and then the features. So if we hit play, so here's the tube that we all run down to get into Gluth's room. You can see our Conan is marked with a with a triangle, with a square. and he's going to be the tank, and he's coming out first. So I'm going to actually slow this down to half speed. The boss doesn't appear on the screen yet because he's not in the log yet. So now he's in the log. So here's the boss. Now you can target the boss and you can see who he's targeting. So right there, he's targeting Arconan. He already chunked him down to 35%, which is a little scary. You could see other people have fall damage. These are all people that got fall damage. You can see their health. So this is just like you're watching the raid. You know, it's not exactly like you're watching the raid on a stream. I still would recommend that some people in your raid stream so you can get different points of view. But this is handy to replay this. Oh, he's almost dead. Is he getting a heal? So he's got, and you can see what he's got, what buffs he has. So if he casts Last Stand, I'd be able to see it. You can't see all of his buffs, but you can see, I can see that he's got his trinket going. I don't think he died here though. This was like 2 weeks ago. So here his cast. He's casting Death Wish and Heroic Strike. So now he's got Flurry up. I hope somebody's healed. Okay, now he's getting healed. He put a shield on. Shield block. Now he's revenging. Now he's healed up to 100%. Now he's probably going back to dual wield, but I can't really see that in this view. So then he's going to back Gluth all the way up to the door, and the raid will slowly follow. And then myself and a paladin. Oh, where am I at? I'm probably getting rage. So if you mouse over somebody, it shows you, there I am. But you can also click them here. You kind of have to click near the bottom of the frame. So like you see how it highlights there. So if I click up here at the top, it doesn't do anything. You got to go to the bottom of the frame, and then it'll let you pick. So then you see it kind of makes me bigger and then shows which way I'm facing. I'm in Berserker stance and building rage. You can't see my rage bar in here, but what I'm going to do is build rage and then I'm going to run around. I'm just explaining it so you can see. So you can see like here's if people are in the right positions. So if you're a raid leader, this tool is very handy. You can look and you can look at this and you can pause it and you can say, well, the boss is getting pulled. Why are you still in the tube? Like this person's in the tube. I don't know why this person's in the tube. Maybe they were AFK on the pull. So here you can see, so River and myself are the kiters. She's basically spamming Blessing of Kings on all the warriors, and that creates a ton of threat. And what happens is these zombies spawn, and when the zombies spawn, they run towards Gluth, and if they reach him, he heals. So instead, she is spamming Blessing of Kings to get them to chase her, and then I'm slowing them with Piercing Howl, and we're just going to kite all around the back of the room like this in a circle. And sometimes I hamstring them. So here's a zombie here. You should see it stop and turn around and chase her. There's a zombie there. They just spawn in random. They just randomly spawn back here. There's one that just spawned. He's still moving the boss. And I'm only playing this at half speed. This zombie, for whatever reason, is not leaving. So then I intercept it. I probably hamstrung it. Now they're all chasing us. This one's still not chasing us. But you can see I'm basically doing no damage. I'm just... And sometimes these... And these are moving really slowly. So they're not... For some reason their position on the map is not updating. But if you watch the stream, which I don't have the stream pulled up right now, but if we watch the stream, you can see them running. They're running around and chasing us, and we're just slowing them down the entire time. But you can use this replay to see, you know, well, what exactly happened? Why did that warrior only have 5 DPS or 70 DPS or whatever? You can also look and see, so no one died here. so nobody's dead. But you can also go back to like a certain point in time. Let's say you're looking at the logs, and at 43 seconds the tank dies. Let's just say that happened. You could come in and analyze in here, or excuse me, in replay. Come to 43 seconds, and then you can go down and look at every healer and see who were they targeting. Okay, this guy was targeting the main tank. So I'm assuming he's casting a heal or just got done casting a heal. This druid was targeting Gluth, probably refreshing Fairy Fire. I'm just guessing. This paladin is in the middle of a flash of light cast. Well, not in the middle, but 0.3 seconds into a flash of light cast on the main tank. This paladin's near the end of a flash of light on the main tank. So you can see, whoops. So you can see like what people are doing. So you feel like, what were my priests doing? This priest had, was almost just about halfway through a heal. This priest was flash healing almost at the end. So obviously the tank didn't die, but there's times that I've gone back in logs. For example, Broodlord in BWL in one of my previous guilds, we had problems with tanks dying, and whenever we would go back and look at the logs, it would be because a few people got hit with Blast Wave, which doesn't kill you, and Blast Wave has a cooldown, so you get hit by it and you lose health and you get knocked back, but you run back as a melee and you start attacking again. There's no reason you need to heal that up immediately. You can toss on a hot on those melee or put Judgment of Light on the boss or whatever the case may be. And then Broodlord would smoke the tank because everybody else was targeting a melee or a mage or whatever and healing them up. So as a raid leader, you could come in here and look and say, well, he died and five of my 9 healers were targeting, mages and healing mages up for what, because they were down 10% health. So this can be a very handy tool for things like that. And those kinds of things are just you're not going to be able to tell by looking at the logs in here. That's another reason why it's important, I think, to have some folks stream, and that way you can go back and look at the streams. But the replay tool in here is very handy for that. Okay, I think that's probably we didn't talk about healing. I'm not a healer, but I don't think healers really care too much about their parsing. But just like damage, DPS, you can look at healing. You can look at how much healing per second they were pumping out. You can see what their most like the most heal was. So for Wombatty, flash heal was the most, and then prayer was second. And then Altina, prayer was first by a long shot, and then flash heal, greater heal, flash heal. So there's 2 flash heals in there because they're different ranks. That's why they're showing up in there twice. Sereno has a renew as the top one, so probably that's, if I had to guess, that person probably has 8 out of 8 tier 2 on. Let's go check. So you click on them. So there's 2 different ranks of flash heal here. And then renew. So if we go to summary, looks like no, they did not. Am I looking at the wrong thing? Yeah, so what I thought was happening there was that they had 8 out of 8 tier 2 on, which your greater heals put a heal over time component equivalent to a rank 5 renew. But that's not what the case was. It doesn't look like. And our priests, in general, I'll say, our paladins are assigned to tank heals, and our priests and druids are assigned to raid healing. And our priests are usually casting prayer of healing more than anything else. I think on Gluth it's a little different because there's not a ton of raid damage going out. But this is where you can kind of look at this stuff. And then if you wanted to look at individuals, like I said, you could click on their name. You could see the crit rate, the average land for the average hit, which is the average heal for flash heal. And then the average hit for prayer of healing. Let's see, buffs. So if you wanted to see if people had buffs, this can be buggy because it doesn't, I think that only counts a buff if the buff was put on in combat. So for example, if we let's go to Elixir of Mongoose. Okay, only 2 people had Elixir of Mongoose. There's no way that that's the case. What this means is that it either fell off, which it looks like mine fell off, and then XZ put his back on, or refreshed it, or it fell off and he refreshed it later, whatever the case may be. This isn't going to show a lot of the buffs that you went into combat with. It'll show you, like, let's go to Salvation. Oh, Greater Salvation. So if you go to Greater Blessing of Salvation, I guarantee the entire raid had Salvation on before the pool started, but it's not showing them. And that's the reason why. So, but if you want to look at combat buffs, like for an example, I would say trinkets, but it depends on what trinket people have. So like Slayer's Crest, you can see 4 people cast it. And you can see who they are and when they cast it in the fight. Or if you wanted to do Kiss of the Spider. And obviously it depends on if they have this trinket or not. So you can see Arcona the tank cast it right away, and then the other warriors cast it later on in the fight. Death Wish, something like Death Wish you could see. I don't see Death Wish at all. Is that because it's a debuff? Only 2 people cast Death Wish. It was probably down from Grobulus, because we pulled Gluth pretty quickly after Grobulus. But the tank cast it, and then this DPS warrior cast it. And you can, and if you don't know the name of the ability, you can always just scroll down. This will show you every single thing that was captured, so you can see that the majority of the damage buffs are captured. Like the world buffs are in here. Somebody had might have Stormwind. So shield block, you could see shield block was cast 12 times. I'm assuming that was by the main tank, but we could always go back and check, or we could just click on shield block. Yep, main tank cast in shield block. So if you're a raid leader and you want to know Blade Flurry, Mind Quickening Gem, Adrenaline Rush, defensive buffs, Fear Ward. So this is really handy to look and see what people were doing and using. And you don't have to look again without, at individual. I usually start out at a high level and then I go down to a lower level. So if I want to know, like Sunder Armor is probably, like if I want to know how many people were casting Sunder Armor, like I'll go to casts and then I'll just look. Like usually your main tank is at the very top of cast per minute because of Heroic Strike. DPS warriors though should be pretty close behind. But if you wanted to come and look at, like, where am I at? I'm way down here. My casts per minute are 23. And I think the vast majority of those were, Piercing Howl. So I cast Hamstring 6 times, Piercing Howl 13 times. I Goblin Sapper Charged. I Berserker Raged. I Whirlwinded. I Intercepted. I Battle Shouted. And I Demo Shouted one. So usually what I'll do is I'll run it. Let's look at the timelines and see when it was. So I cast Berserker Rage probably in the tunnel as I'm running out of the tunnel. So this doesn't, let's look at damage done. I'm trying to see when did I leave Gluth. Oh, how about this? Yeah, so you can see I only attack Gluth for long enough to get 100 rage and then I leave. So I attacked him for about 10 seconds. And it was just white hits. Because I don't want to spend rage, I want to gain rage. So right about here. So from 10 to 11 seconds all the way to here is when I'm waiting on the zombies to spawn. And then you can see I got piercing howl, hamstring, 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 demo shout, battle shout. And then if you want to go back to the high level, then you just take the person's name out. And then here's the casts for everybody. So this is another thing that's handy to look at. So I'm under timelines. Let's look at damage done. You can use this to see if somebody damaged the boss before a tank did, which has been a problem in previous guilds that I've been a part of. So if you are looking, and it's another way as a raid leader to see, are people casting what they should be right away? Like, you don't want your DPS warriors opening up with Bloodthirst, because they're probably going to rip aggro off the tank for one, and for two, Sunder Armor needs to be up first. So you can see here that if we go down the list, so here's the list of everybody. We're under damage done, right? Yep, damage done. Here's the list of everybody that did damage to the boss. And let's make sure, nope, let's change it to Gluth. Okay, pretty much the same list. So you can see Arconin meleeed first, and then very shortly after, this person meleeed, and then there was a demoralizing shout. You can kind of see in what order people started attacking the boss. If all of these warriors started attacking like here, that's probably too soon, because the tank needs time to, on this boss in particular, to get down on the ground, get healed up, get aggro on the boss, spin him around, and we'll start walking backwards towards the door. You don't want all your DPS intercept stunning, which the stun's not going to matter on the boss, but you don't want them intercepting Gluth and then bloodthirsting right away. They're going to die. So you can look at this and see, well, what happened? You can look at the replay, but you can also look here under timelines and damage done and see, well, who was casting what, or this isn't cast, this is damage. Like you can see, I didn't start doing damage until well after, almost 3 seconds after the tank had been there, and I'm not casting anything. I'm just meleeing and then Thunder Fury procced. Whereas in these guys, you can see there's heroic strikes, there's bloodthirst, there's whirlwinds. You can see rogue poison, sinister strike. You can see things that were going on. Super handy to see that. Damage taken, we can also take a look at this. The timeline isn't super handy here, but you can look at the events. But also, one thing that I like to look at is the tables. So you can see how much damage taken per second. So let's look at Patchwork real quick, because this is... I don't think anybody died. Let's see if anybody died on Patchwork. Okay, I think XZ... This is the week that he DC'd. He was the main tank and he DC'd. But let's look at damage taken anyway. So his damage taken is going to be incorrect because he ended up dying, but he was DC'd anyway, and he would have disappeared. But you could see how much damage Patchwork does. And we were trading heroic strikes. We were trading hateful strikes the entire time. I'm pretty sure that our Conan took over and was getting both melees and hateful strikes. Yeah, if you see the meter there, you can see he took 55k for hatefuls and 96k of melee, and I took 6k of melee and 200k of hateful strikes. But this is a good way to see, are your tanks taking too much damage? And you can also see how much of that damage was mitigated. So if your tank dies on a boss fight and you're like, what was going on? You can go and look, we can go look, 2,000 damage per second is a lot. That's a lot. Even for Patchwork, that's a lot. But the reason why is because I was basically, we were duo tanking when we should have had 3 tanks. I was eating a lot of hatefuls. So if you see his melee, he only meleeed me 4 times. He only hit me 3. This was in the very beginning of the fight when the main tank had started to DC, because we overtook him we overtook him on threat. But if you look at hateful strikes, 36 hits. Actually, let's click on this. Yeah, 36 hits. The average hit was 6k. He missed almost 50% of hateful strikes, and still I took 2,000 damage per second. And then mitigated also my dodge parries and misses. And then if you mouse over this, you can see blocked hit and hit, and then you can see the absorbed amount, the min amount, the max amount, and the average amount. So then if I wanted to look and see, well, what gear was this dude wearing? Again, you can go back to summary and make sure you're filtered on that person. And then you can mouse over and it'll show you, and the enchants are always wrong. So like this says 2 stats, and if you mouse over it, you can see it says 4 stats. I don't know why these enchants are always showing incorrect. Like 3 parry on the shield, there's no such thing as 3 parry. 2% block. 6 strength on bracers is 9 strength. 3 agi on gloves is 15 agi. So this column is usually incorrect, but you can mouse over and see what enchants I had. So I had stamina and armor there. Sadist collar. So I was wearing 4 pieces of tier 3. Pauldrons of the Unrelenting, which are Abyss, Mitigation, Steadies, Veclor. So I was pretty mitted out. There's still some more mit that I could do, but on Patchwork we do a little bit more of a balance between mitigation and threat, which is why I have threat trinkets on, Slayer's Crest and Mark of the Champion. I'm not going to wear mitigation trinkets on this fight. But that's some of the things that you can look at there as well. Dispels, I don't really look at dispel. Let's look at is there a dispel heavy fight? Grobulus maybe? So Grobulus does, I feel like this isn't right though. I feel like I've looked at this before and it's just not correct. Maybe it is. So Saffron does a curse, life drain, and this shows the folks who decursed, and I know it's a curse, and then what the count of that was. This seems high though. I don't think he cast life drain 40 times, did he? Let's see. So casts, enemies, Saffron. Cast life drain 4 times. So some of the things in here you need to kind of verify and take with a grain of salt. I'm trying to remember what there's an ability. Oh, execute. So let's go to damage done. So Strong Dad did the most damage on this attempt. Okay, let's click here. And you can see execute, he cast it, or he hit with it 10 times, right? But if you go to casts, and we go down the list, there's no execute. For some reason, execute, like Heroic Strike counts, Bloodthirst counts, all these abilities count, but execute, for whatever reason, doesn't show up as a cast. It only shows up when you look at damage done. And I'll just show, like, so now I'm going to do all friendlies and all abilities, go E for execute, and it's not in here. I don't know why it's not in there, but it's not. But if you go to damage done for everybody, and then you go to all abilities, and then we go to execute. So there, it got cast a bunch of times by a bunch of warriors. Almost 300,000 damage. So if you can't find something in here, or if things don't, if you're like, well, my damage meter in the game said that XYZ person dispelled once, and in here it says 10 times. There's still some things that are not correct in here. So this is pretty much the interface. It's, like I said, it takes a bit to get used to. The fastest way to get used to it is just to get around and play around with it. Start uploading your own logs. Go to MC, go to Onyxia, go to ZG, go to AQ20, and then upload your logs, and then just start opening them up and playing, or you can open up other. You just create an account. You know, if you're on White Mane, like let's say we want to look at Phase 7. So you can search for guilds, you can search for people. I don't think you can search for enemies. Yeah, that's a realm. So there's a realm. There's 2 characters named Patchwork. This one has 2 Ks in it. But let's say if you're on White Mane and you want to look at Phase 7, go to the come in here and it shows their rankings. It shows their information, their calendar if the calendar is populated. You can go to the reports. So let's see, their most recent report was last week. And it says it's about an hour. So this is a speedrunning guild. This is Nax DMF. Oh, this is gonna be good. And then you can just start looking at their different fights. And if you can look. So if you want to look at just encounters, you can just encounters and trash fights, which is the whole raid. And once you're in here, you can still select it from. You can still reselect it from up there. That's damage taken. Sorry. There we go. Damage done. So let's see. Did anyone parse pink, or did anyone parse 100 maybe? 299s on a noob, and I don't really know the tank 99 as well. I don't really know anybody in this guild. I just know that they're a speedrunning guild that is very good. They have a rep paladin, or what's going on with this? Or is that person just doing damage? I'm gonna have to look at that in a minute. Maxna, 30-second Maxna kill. So if you're a tank, for example, so obviously it looks like the same guy is tanking every single boss. But this is what I've done in the past is, well, let me see. Obviously a 30-second kill. They're killing it before web wrap. But they also have some really great healers and some really great DPS. But still, I want to see, you know, how's this guy holding aggro? What's he wearing? He wore Helm of Endless Rage with the ZG enchant on it. Storm Rage's Talisman of Seething. He's wearing 3 pieces of 2.5, probably so he can spam Battle Shout for threat cheaper. He's got the attack power and crit enchant. Conqueror's Breastplate with 100 health instead of 4 stats. And I don't know why, but I'm sure there's a reason why. Girdle the Mentor, Conqueror's Legs with the ZG enchant, Chromatic Boots with agility, Riskards of Vengeance, Steadies, Circlet of Applied Force, Signet Ring of the Bronze Dragonflight, Kiss of the Spider, Drakefang Talisman, Cloak of the Fallen God, Hungering Cold, and Thunder Fury in the offhand. Interesting. So this is Maxna. If you go and look at other guilds on your realm and you see that they're taking 2 minutes to kill Maxna, a lot of that is obviously going to be their DPS, but it's also going to be on the tank, because if you're dual wield tanking in 8 out of 8 tier 3, you're not putting out the kind of threat that this dude is putting out. So the DPS can't go crazy. Let's see if they... I don't think they wreck on this fight. Let's see. So I don't see recklessness in here. And then... Oh, Death Wish, okay. So they looks like they all Death Wished, or most of them did anyway. About 7 seconds into the fight. They all cast it exactly at the same time. That is crazy. Yeah, I don't see... I don't see recklessness. So they didn't even wreck on this fight. We usually wreck on her in our guild. They're probably saving it for a different fight. Let's look at Patchwork. I think they dual tank Patchwork. So I don't think they wrecked here either because nobody got a 99. One tank, two tank. And another way to see that real quick is just go to damage taken. You can see what the damage taken is. So this person is solo tanking Hateful Strikes because the main tank will not take Hateful Strikes. And then you can say, well, let's see what they're wearing. So open this person, go to summary. So they're wearing Dreadnought Helm, Barbed Choker, Dreadnought Pauldrons, Dreadnought Breastplate, Karaji Belt, Leg Plates of Wrath, because these legs are better than tier 3 for avoidance. I almost said the wrong thing there. Because they have 2% dodge on them. And tier 3, I think, has block chance and block value and defense. And these have defense and 2% dodge. So that's probably why this person's wearing those. I've been debating if I should go back and get... I've sold leg plates of Wrath a long time ago. Dreadnought Sabatons. They're wearing a lot more Dreadnought than I thought they would be. Even the ring. Wow, a lot of tanks I know don't like the Ring of Dreadnought because it doesn't have any threat stats on it at all. And Life-Giving Jeb, Storm Pike. So this is another 2% dodge. So their goal... Oh, you know why? I know why. Because Hateful Strike, every time you receive a Hateful Strike, you gain threat. There's a threat modifier to receiving Hateful Strike. So if you're the solo tank and you're receiving all of the Hateful Strikes, you can mit up even more. That's why they're wearing all this. So it looks like they're just... And they don't have dodge on their cloak. Wait a minute. You're putting on Leg Plates of Wrath and Storm Pike for dodge, and you're not going to put dodge in your cloak? Let's see what their avoidance was. So... almost 50%. Just in 20 dodges. Yeah, look at that. Dodge, 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 dodge. So yeah, so create an account, poke around, look for different players. If you see certain players in Stormwind or Ironforge, that's kind of how I started analyzing logs before. This was like a year ago when I started using Warcraft logs. But you can just search for people and then look at their different reports, look at their parses, start, pulling apart their... Just looking at their, rotation. Okay, so let's say here. So this dude on Lotheb parsed a 99. Actually, several people did. But we could look and see. Obviously, Heroic Strike. He's Heroic Striking like crazy. Let's check his casts. So Bloodthirst, 8.4. He's hamstringing in between to try to proc Flurry because hamstring does damage. And this is another thing that might help. And I know I'm focusing on warriors because that's what I play. But you might see something in somebody's log and say, why is this guy hamstringing? And you go Google... why does a DPS warrior hamstring? And you'll find either threads on Reddit or on the Blizzard forums or wherever. And Fury Warriors will say, oh yeah, when you're in Bis gear or nearly Bis gear, which means you have rage to spare, you can cast Heroic Strike essentially every single swing, but you can then cast Hamstring in between those because hamstring, you can't hamstring a boss, obviously. It's immune to the slowing effect, but hamstring also does damage. It does like 50 damage or 40 damage, or I don't know, I forget what it is. And that can proc Flurry. So you can have a weak aura that shows you if your Flurry is up or down, and when it's down or about to be down, you can cast Hamstring to try to. You're basically fishing for a crit, is what you're doing. So that's why, and he cast it 15 times on Lotheb to try to get flurry procs. But then you can also go to the timelines and see what was the actual rotation like. So you could see the rotation, starts with a Bloodthirst, but it doesn't start until 5 seconds into the fight because he's probably letting the tank get aggro first. So Bloodthirst and then Whirlwind and then Heroic Strike. And then he's probably building his rage up to 100. What I'm going to guess is that this guy's in Spore Group 1, and he's going to get the Spore pretty early on. So he's probably just... actually, let's go to damage done. Sorry, I was on casts. Sorry. Is this Battle Chicken? Yeah, Battle Chicken is meleeing and doing whatever. So he's meleeing, he's bloodthirsting, he's Dragon Breath Chili, he's meleeing, he's whirlwinding, he's heroic striking, and then he's just meleeing. He's probably building rage to 100 because he's gonna go to Spore Group 1. And there's a way we can see that too. So we can go to Spore. He didn't do any damage to the Spore? Okay, somebody else did damage to the Spore then. I'd have to watch the replay then to see if he was in Spore Group 1. That's just what I'm going to guess based on him not casting anything in here. And then you see him intercepting back to Lotheb. So in here he ran over, got the Spore. He's probably at 100 rage. And then he's just going to start dumping. So he's Heroic Strike. Now you can see he's starting to hamstring. Bloodthirsting, hamstringing, Dragon Breath, Goblin Sapper. He didn't use his trinket yet because their fight is only 1:40 long. So if you use your trinket at 2 minutes, which is a 2-minute cooldown, you're not going to have it back up by the end of the fight if the fight only lasts 1:40. So he's just bloodthirsting on cooldown and whirlwinding on cooldown. He's hamstringing. Whenever he has a free global cooldown, he's hamstringing. So global cooldown, hamstring. Dragon Breath is automatic. Global cooldown, hamstring. And he's heroic striking the entire time. There's a little bit of a gap here, but he probably was waiting on Bloodthirst or something. I don't know. Global cooldown, hamstring. Global cooldown, hamstring. So I'm under damage done still, not casts. And then he starts executing here. When he starts executing, you can see Heroic Strike falls off, but he's still meleeing. So he's just Heroic Striking. Or excuse me, executing. And then he Bloodthirsted right at the end for 3,500. Holy Lord. Let's go to casts if we want to see where his trinket was. I'm going to guess it was right at, there's Death Wish right here. And then Kiss of the Spider. He's probably timing both of those to coincide with the end of the boss. And then he's got a Cure Poison. So you can see what the rotation is. Like, look at all those heroic strikes. They're just like, he's heroic striking every single Q is a heroic strike. Pretty consistently. So if you're a DPS warrior and you want to know, how do I parse on Lotheb? This is how you parse on Lotheb. With a rotation that looks like that. And then you can see, well, what buffs did he have? We had Battle Chicken. That's Crusader. He had Fengus Frost. These are all the buffs he had. Warchief's Blessing. I think it said DMF week. So DMF. And then the gear. You can see what gear he had. I'm assuming this dude's in Biss. Lionheart Helm, Barb Choker, Conqueror Spalders. Oh, he's got the Undead set. Okay, that makes sense. You're probably not going to have the Undead set unless you played back in the original launch of Era. Onslaught Girdle, Leg Plates of Carnage, Chromatic Boots, Boof, Master Dragon Slayers, Kiss of the Spider, Mark of the Champion, Gressel, Hungering Cold, Striker's Mark. Yeah, that's why. And a lot of these pieces of gear, like why is he using... And again, when you look at people's gear and questions come up, you know, why does a Fury Warrior so let's just see if we this is probably not it. I know the answer to the question. I'm just going to see. Or you could just ask someone in your guild. Oh, here. How to parse 99 in Lotheb. Watlook Fury. I'm not going to watch that, but maybe that has the answer in it. So the answer, and again, you know, this is stuff, and maybe we just do more results and it'll show up. Because Striker's Mark is really not that great for DPS warriors. It's really good for rogues. I think it's best for rogues until Nax. But the reason why he's using it is because the Spore buff or the Spore debuff. Is it a debuff or is it a buff? Yeah, Fungal Bloom. So let's click on that. Oh, I thought it would take me to Wowhead. Critical hit chance increased by 50%. Spells and abilities cause no threat. And then spell critical goes up by 60. So the reason why he's using Barbed Choker, or excuse me, not Barbed Choker. What else did I... Oh, Onslaught Girdle is more attack power than Mentors. He's basically trying to suppress some of his crit rating in favor of attack power. That's also why he's using Master Dragon Slayer's ring. Because normally you don't see this ring on full BIS players. It's just not as good as some of the other options. But you can afford on Lotheb to drop some crit rating in favor of hit rating and attack power. And that's why he's doing that. He's adding hit rating with strikers, and it still has 22 attack power. Maybe he doesn't have the bow. I think the bow. What does the bow have? I don't know. I don't want to look it up. But that's also why these are BIS for Lotheb, is because even though they're blue, this is the undead set, so this increases damage by 2%. But it's 60 attack power when fighting undead, 45 attack power when fighting undead, 81 attack power when fighting undead. A lot of your high-end parses in Nax. Now, what weapon stones did he have? It says 12 melee critical strike. Anyone who has the consecrated weapon stones, I don't know if they created a filter for that or not, but that's why you'll see stuff like this on Lotheb. But like I said, that, you know, looking at logs can create questions in your mind where you're wanting to know. Oh, here's Dwarf Lord. I wonder why they're putting this in the offhand. Is that because they want less procs for debuffs? I don't know. I'm gonna have to ask. So I might just ask him on his stream or in his Discord maybe. Because this is like the third person I've seen with Crusader in the offhand. Or excuse me, with Thunder Fury in the offhand. Okay, so there's some other buttons up here that you can go to rankings, and you can go to you can click around on this stuff. It's not super critical. And sometimes Warcraft logs takes a while to load some of this stuff. Really, you're just going to be kind of living in the analyze and replay, and yeah, I've never really used this mechanics tab before. I guess this is telling you, let's go to Saffron and see what it says. Let's go. Okay, this is probably the wrong guild to be looking at this tab. Shows avoidable hits and damage taken. Maybe a noob? No? Yeah, this is probably not the right guild to look for this. And maybe this doesn't work. I've never really used it. Most of the time you're just doing the analyze and the replay. The threat graph is really only good for tanks and raid leaders. this is a plugin. Oops. Or an extension. Is that what it's called? Yeah, extension. And it's called WCL Threat Link. So it's Warcraft Logs Threat Link. So if you install that extension, what that does is it puts a tool in here, and I will show you how it works just really quickly. So let's go to Thaddeus, because I'm sure Thaddeus. Did anyone die on Thaddeus? Any mage deaths? Nope. Oh, someone died a negative charge. Thaddeus is usually where mages ignite, overtakes the tanks. So what you do is you go to the fight, whatever. I'm gonna open it in a new tab. Okay, so I'm gonna go find Thaddeus, and it's in order of how they killed them. So, and if you wipe, there'll be 2 Thaddeus's in here. So make sure you're picking the right one. So if there's 2 Kel'Thuzads in here, did they wipe? No way. Okay, I don't know why there's 2 Kel'Thuzads in there. Usually that means that there was a wipe. But I'm going to go to Thaddeus, hit fetch release, or excuse me, fetch refresh. And then it's going to have Stalag and Fugan and Thaddeus. I don't really care about those 2. I care about Thaddeus. Okay. So then this is the... And you can click on people to remove their names. But this is where you can see, like, oh, right here, the mage. So let me zoom this in. So here's the tank, and I can tell just because of his name. And he also has the best threat coefficient. So you can see, let's select him. Where's he at? I guess it could be a her. I don't know. So tank started the fight with threat coefficient of 1.495, which is basically full threat. It's defensive stance plus defiance without salvation or greater salvation. And you can see right here it's inferred on, inferred off, inferred off, inferred off. So it is usually pretty smart and can tell if they had it or not. But you can see here the mage is climbing, and the mage briefly passed. So they don't even do a taunt rotation. They just do one tank. Ours normally has tanks overtaking each other with taunts. So the mage probably petried, I'm guessing, or got a bop in here. So the mage threat is just climbing, 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 bam, and then it just like plateaus, and then it starts climbing, 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 and then it stops again. The warlock is actually doing a crazy amount of threat. I don't know why they're casting Searing Pain, but again, that's a question that I've not seen that before. I don't know why warlocks would be casting Searing Pain on Thaddeus. But this is where you can see if someone overtook your tank on threat, and you can also see if your tank's threat was a nice steady climb. This is a pretty handy tool. I will say that sometimes it does have issues. Sometimes it will say that the tank's coefficient was... like sometimes tanks start fights in berserker stance because they wanted blood rage, and then they swap to defensive. If they do that, sometimes this picks that up and it shows that their coefficient is like 0.8 instead of 1.49, and their graph is going to be all skewed. So you need to watch out for that. But this is really handy for tanks and ray leaders to see, how much threat was my tank putting out. And if you want to figure out their threat per second, you can just come to the very end here, and it says their total threat. So his total threat was 290,463. You can divide that by the fight length, which is 100. It looks like 160 seconds or 158 seconds. Let's see. 243. So you can turn that into seconds, and that will tell you their overall threat per second if you care about that. So it's a pretty handy tool to have. But also looking at the mage, like I wonder what that mage did. So hoi poily, not sure how to pronounce that. So we're gonna go to casts. We're gonna go to okay. Now I don't see Petri in here. I'll go to buffs. They had salve put on them. They blinked. Inspiration. I don't see a bop. So you can see their damage. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure what happened there. Unless this is showing the threat. I mean, this should be the holder of the ignite. So let's do this. Let's just see casts for the whole raid. And then do Petri. Oh no, it's Flask. Flask of Petrification. Flask of the Titans. Nobody. No Blessing of Protection. Did he lip? What's a lip? Living. Limited and vulnerable. I don't see lips in here either. Okay, so I'm not sure what. Maybe they just let the ignite drop. I guess they just let it drop. So let's look at debuffs, enemies. Yeah, I guess it fell off. Okay, maybe that's why. So, and the reason I'm looking at that in that fashion is because normally in our raid we leave the ignite up on Thaddeus. We have 4 tanks that are rotating taunts, and if too many taunts get resisted, the mage will first use a lip, a limited invulnerability potion, and they'll keep the ignite up, and then they'll get a bop from a paladin, and then they'll Petri if they need to after that. Or sometimes the mage gets killed one shot because everybody's basically in melee range, and then the ignite will fall off. But it looks like they probably let it fall off on purpose. Maybe they do that because they do polarity Saf. Because I know Saffron died in 19 seconds, and we don't do polarity Saf, so I don't know all the intricacies of that strategy. But maybe that's what they're doing there, is playing it safe, so that the mages can keep their buffs or whatever, and they can single tank it, and then they can just run and do polarity Saf. So, all right, guys. Well, if anyone has any questions, I'm not a professional at Warcraft logs. Obviously, I do use it every single week. I might start doing some videos. I'm debating on doing some videos in the near future where I go back maybe every Monday or something and look at my previous week's performance in the raids and just kind of show. And it's helpful to watch somebody doing this, and then you can kind of follow along. So maybe I'll do something like that. But this is a very handy tool. Like I said, if you're a raid leader or a guild leader or a class leader or whatever, Warcraft logs is extremely useful. And if you're an individual who wants to get better and learn more about how the game works, and even just going to look at other people's logs, even if you never upload your own logs, you can still use this to go look at other people's, what gear they're wearing on what bosses, what their rotation looks like. And like I said, sometimes questions will get generated, and then if you go find out the answers to those questions, you might learn some things that you just didn't know before, which is always useful. So, all right, guys. Well, I'll see you in the next video.